was undoubtedly the sexiest leading lady in any horror movie. With her angelic face, enchanting figure, and a voice so sweet it could melt hearts, Kelly alone was worth the ticket price, even without considering the plot. Without further ado, let's dive into today's tale. Frank, for once not stuck at overtime, bought a bottle of wine, planning a delightful surprise for his wife. But as he approached the doorstep, he was greeted by the auto-familiar, tantalizing moans echoing within the vivid an image that another glance would surely stop his heart. Frank yearned to storm and end the adulterous scene, but reason whispered that the odds were against him in a 2-on-1 situation. Overwhelmed with sorrow and rage, Frank retreated, choosing instead to vent at a strip club for the first time in his life. In the club spotlight stood Penny, lips painted red like fire, exuding irresistible charm. Her advances left Frank on the edge of losing control, ensnared in Penny's seductive web. Unbeknownst to him, Penny was a thief. After making a score, she headed to a back room to split the loot with her boss, 50-50. However, the boss fell shortchanged and coerced Penny into a different form of payment. This led to a heated dispute between them. Frank's concern spiked when Penny's screams pierced through the walls. His mind became a battlefield where one voice urged him to be a hero, while the other warned against meddling. Recalling his cowardice in the face of his wife's infidelity, Frank refused to retreat again. He raced back to the club, bursting through the door, pinning the boss beneath it. Swiftly grabbing a pistol from the table, Frank demanded Penny's freedom. The boss, underestimating Frank's resolve, was met with a gunshot that injured his hand. Faced with Frank's unexpected ferocity, the cowardly boss relented, freeing Penny, who fled with Frank, clutching the stolen safe. Anticipating retaliation, they switched to a used car mid-journey. As they embarked on this unpredictable adventure, their bond intensified swiftly. Candid conversations led to intimate revelations. Frank decided to leave his wedding ring behind, vowing to start anew with Penny. In turn, Penny confessed to stealing credit cards, her intentions the previous night anything but pure. Yet, Frank, deeply smitten, forgave her instantly, the love story unfolding amidst the thrill of the unknown. After setting off again, they encountered a police checkpoint. Worried that their firearm might be discovered, Penny used her charm to distract the sheriff. True enough, beauty seemed to hold a certain power. Before departing, the sheriff handed Penny his business card, assuring her she could call him anytime they needed assistance. He also kindly informed them that the upcoming 30 kilometers lacked mobile signal or petrol stations, but there was a motel 12 kilometers ahead where they could refuel. Equipped with this vital information, Penny accelerated and sped off. Meanwhile, on the opposite side of the highway, Jasmine's car was stranded due to a blown tire, exacerbated by zero phone signal. Jasmine was in a panic, like an ant on a hot stove, when a tow truck pulled up behind her. The driver, Clive, inquired about her problem. Once he understood, Clive offered to change her tire, but Jasmine, cautious, declined his offer. Clive, upon finding a spare tire in his trunk, realized Jasmine's hesitation was due to her mistrust. He then proposed towing her to the motel where her car could be repaired, estimating it would be ready by the following day. Lacking better alternatives, Jasmine hesitantly agreed. During the journey, Clive unsettlingly commented that if he were a villain, she wouldn't be safe inside his truck. Jasmine, already anxious, grew even more frightened by his words. Sensing her vulnerability, Clive's behavior turned inappropriate, his hand slipping onto Jasmine's thigh, causing her legs to tremble in fear. Upon reaching the motel, Jasmine took advantage of Clive's absence to call her father using the landline. They arranged to meet the next morning, and coincidentally, Jasmine's father was the same sheriff who had inspected Penny and Frank's vehicle earlier. Frank and Penny, en route to the motel, encountered a man dressed entirely in white standing in the middle of the road, halting their progress. He explained that his car had broken down and implored them for a lift. Helping strangers carried risks, and Penny, demonstrating her wit, produced the sheriff's card, suggesting he seek help from the authorities. Unbeknownst to them, this man was the motel owner himself. Before long, they arrived at their destination. Just the chef Beer and Clive were hastily hiding a body upon arrival. The lovers, blinded by their affection, noticed nothing amiss. That evening, Chef Bean prepared dinner, surreptitiously moving the concealed corpse to the freezer and carving a leg from the hanging female cadaver. Jasmine, fresh from a shower, inadvertently witnessed this grisly scene, realizing the motel's horrifying secret. Angrily, the chef blamed Clive for not informing him about Jasmine occupying the room, fearing exposure. Clive, wary of Jasmine spilling the beans, approached her room to gauge her reaction. Jasmine, pretending everything was normal, managed to deflect his inquiries while discreetly barricading the door with a chair. Unsatisfied but unconvinced, Clive left. Later, Clive's blonde-haired wife introduced Frank and Penny to the motel owner, regaling them with tales of his supposed supernatural ability to hold trains with a mere gesture. While she spun fantastic stories, the owner had slipped into Frank and Penny's room, rifling through their belongings and bizarrely sniffing Penny's pants. Frank's skepticism about the owner's powers was interrupted by the man's entrance, who proceeded to divulge his chilling family history. His grandfather, a supervisor in a mine filled with criminals, survived the cave-in that trapped him with the prisoners. Alone among survivors, he resorted to consuming their organs to stay alive. More astonishingly, the owner revealed that for centuries, his family had upheld a tradition of cannibalizing sinners, believing it to be a form of world purification. Anyone passing through was coerced into confessing at the motel, receiving a bullet behind the ear for minor offenses, or becoming a meal for more egregious sins. The owner admitted to occasionally committing crimes himself, thus also subjecting himself to this morbid self-punishment. The boss informed Penny that he had sold all his land, would like someone to help him spend the fortune. Furthermore, he mentioned having a house on a hilltop and invited her to join him by heading towards his white car, waiting outside. Tempted by the offer, Penny disregarded Frank's calls and walked out, breaking Frank's heart in the process. The blonde 劝他以饮酒来 drown his sorrows, but Frank, in no mood to unleash his anger on the table, stormed off. Unbeknownst to him, the drink was spiked. However, his fury evaporated upon entering his room, where he found Penny seductively lounging on the sofa. It turned out her departure was merely a prank. She hadn't gotten into the boss's car after all. The deep emotions led them to an intimate encounter, a scene which the boss watched unfold via surveillance cameras. A bit appeal for him to swallow given his own desires. Later, the boss stumbled upon footage of Jasmine calling the sheriff, her father. Enraged, he took it out on Clive, berating him for impregnating his wife despite their child being 3 months old. Clive, infuriated, reminded him they hadn't shared a bed in 3 years. The boss offered no explanation and hastily hung up. The next morning, the boss instructed Clive and the blonde to head towards the location the sheriff would inevitably pass through, with orders to eliminate him. Jasmine, oblivious to her father's impending danger, sneaked into the backseat of Frank in Penny's car as they headed to a restaurant. The bearded man spiked their coffee, but before they could take a sip, his mute wife grew restless, gesturing frantically at the coffees, indicating her goodwill. Sensing the exposure, the bearded man drew his gun, only to be met with equal defiance from Frank, who also pulled out his pistol. In such standoffs, the one appearing more ruthless often prevails, and Frank's feigned bravado made the bearded man yield. Frank swiftly confiscated the weapon, and Penny sped away. Meanwhile, Clive and the blonde successfully intercepted the sheriff, staging a domestic dispute to attract his attention. As the sheriff approached to reprimand Clive for assaulting the woman, the blonde seized the moment to shoot him from behind. Soon after, they received fresh orders from the boss to hunt down Frank and Penny. Unbeknownst to Penny, the vehicle Clive drove was a police car, which she mistook for the kind sheriff's. As Penny looked towards who she thought was the sheriff, the blonde ambushed and dragged Frank out of the car. Before they could resist, both were incapacitated. Sensing danger, Jasmine, hiding in the back seat, bolted into the wilderness beside the road. Clive appeared reluctant to harm the young girl, but the ruthless blonde promptly retrieved the rifle from the car and shot Jasmine. With the task done, Clive disposed of Frank in a dried-up reservoir near a motel, where other bodies baked under the scorching sun. Penny was imprisoned by the bearded man. Upon arrival, the boss immediately engaged in a passionate embrace with the blonde, witnessed by Clive, who was deeply disturbed. The identity of his child's father seemed clear, but Clive swallowed his resentment due to the man's status. Rather than killing Frank, the boss attempted to recruit him into his organization. Frank showed no interest, his primary concern being Penny's welfare. He warned the boss of dire consequences should any harm come to her. The boss scoffed at Frank's threats, reminding him he was no bad man and couldn't escape. Penny, overwhelmed with worry for Frank, wept uncontrollably, smudging her makeup. The boss's proposition for Penny to bear him a child was met with a cold refusal. To the boss, as a stripper who sells her body, what difference did one more time make? Penny's words stung the boss, who responded with a heartfelt declaration that if allowed, he could love her. He gave her until morning to decide, attempting to play on her emotions. Penny, however, was no stranger to man's tricks, and knew Frank was her true love. Jasmine regained consciousness late into the night, devastated by her father's corpse. Yet, in that moment, she witnessed through the car window Clive strangling the blonde with a rope, avenging years of torment. Frightened, Jasmine cowered, but Clive, harboring no ill intent towards her, apologized and let her go. Afterwards, Clive located the reservoir where Frank was held, confessing he was a man of faith, believing that consuming the wicked could purify the world. His dilemma was not finding a sin to attribute to Frank, thus sparing his life. However, he felt compelled to punish himself for murdering his unfaithful wife. With those words, Clive left and hanged himself. Left with no choice, Frank climbed out using Clive's body as leverage. In the cell, Penny refused to be passive. She found a rusty nail and secretively kept it on her person. She then initiated a charm offensive against the bearded guard, who swiftly fell for her pull. As she chained her feet and unlocked the door to engage in intimacy, Penny seized the opportunity and plunged the nail into his eye. Just then, Frank burst through the door, bludgeoning the now blind guard to death. The mute woman nearby hurriedly dialed the boss, who realized something was amiss at the jail upon hearing Frank and Penny's voices. Frank and Penny fled in the car, but the boss, discovering their whereabouts, began casting a spell, commanding left turns. Coincidentally or not, the car indeed turned left, leading the boss to believe in his supposed paranormal abilities, ignoring the fact that a left turn had a 50% chance anyway. The boss got his wish fulfilled and took a shortcut to intercept them on the highway, adopting a seemingly formidable stance to intimidate the couple. Undeterred, Frank floored the accelerator and charged forward. What unfolded next was astonishing. The boss was propelled onto the hood, dragged for hundreds of meters, before finally tumbling off and meeting his demise under the wheels of the car. The main antagonist met an unexpectedly comedic end. Jasmine, concealed in the bushes, added insult to injury by relieving herself on the unconscious boss, only to discover he was still clinging to life. She resolved the situation with several gunshots, ensuring his demise. Back home, Frank indulged into immensely satisfying acts, finalizing his divorce and administering the well-deserved beating to his ex-wife's former husband. Frank and Penny, the star-crossed lovers, reunited. Unbeknownst to them, the strip club owner, seeking revenge, had set his sights on them. Premiering in 2022, the film didn't particularly stand out within its genre, yet Kelly, the lead actress, captivated audiences with her alluring appearance and sultry voice in the movie. And so concludes today's tale. May your Wi-Fi be fast, and your joy forever last. If you like my video, subscribe to my channel.